Hey there, Colt. This is my first non-big WWF or WCW show that I went to. Before I went to the show at the Hammond Civic Center to see the American Wrestling Federation, I had only seen WWF stuff at the Rosemont or NWA stuff at the UIC Pavilion or Hammond Civic Center. This occasion, we had saw the beautiful flyer on a light post or something that said Pro Wrestling AWF. I don't know if I had seen the show yet. I'm pretty sure I did, and I kind of knew the deal. But when we showed up, it was just a whole different vibe than the WWF or NWA shows that I had seen at the Civic Center. I noticed when we pulled up, there weren't as many cars. You know, usually I'm used to like parking on the side of the road and walking up or something like that. You know, there weren't the merch in the hallways. One of my favorite things also, still to this day, when you're in an arena, I love when you kind of can see like a corner of the ring through a doorway. And I looked in that doorway and I would see the ring and you just saw the people and everything. This time I looked in and I saw the ring and I didn't see anybody at all really in the building. And I thought that was odd. And then we walked in and there was, you know, a couple hundred people there. And one of my friends that I was with, I said, I wonder where our seats are. And he just said, why don't we ask Tito? And I looked over, and Tito Santana had the classic T-shirt tucked into the tights, glasses that I assume he wears when he's a teacher, and he was just eating a hot dog talking to, I think, a cop or something. So I thought that was pretty funny. During the show, we splurged and sat front row. That was another sign that I should have said, what's going on with this? Where it's like general admission was like $5 and ringside was like $15 or something. And I'm like, we're going to splurge and get ringside. We got ringside, and man, oh man, I was such a little smarky junior high shithead. I was so out of control there. I should have gotten beaten up by every wrestler. And there was a wrestler named Joey Bags Baglia, a manager, Joey Bags Baglia. I rode this guy so hard, and he was managing like a bunch of the heels. And then there was intermission, and he came back out with Greg the Hammer Valentine. And I could tell that he was like, that's the kid right there, fuck him up. They might have just been messing with me, but I think there was some real plans being hatched. So during the match, Greg the Hammer Valentine, they're fighting on the outside. It might have been Tony Atlas, I'm not exactly sure. Valentine takes a bump, and as he's coming down on the floor, he whips his arm and tries to smash into me. There's no guardrail or anything. There's just the chairs. And I moved out of the way, and his hand hit my chair so hard, and I just thought, oh my God, that was meant for me. So that's it. Love the show. Keep up the good work.
Wow, thank you for the story. Of course, these calls are anonymous. We will never know who these calls are, but time to time, I do have my friends on to tell stories, or people that sound like my friends. And that sounded a lot like my great friend, stand-up comedian, Marty DeRosa. Go check out Marty DeRosa on Twitter, at Marty DeRosa. And he has an amazing podcast called Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling. Go subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. And Sarah Shockey's voice might even be familiar to you, playing a wrestling operator on a podcast you might be listening to right now. As far as the story itself, that's a great one. For those of you who don't know, the AWF was peak my childhood, Saturday mornings. It was on television, syndicated for me on Fox in Chicago, and it was filmed on film that made it look like a movie. So it gave it a way different appearance than the WWF at the time. And it did have Tito Santana, Tony Atlas, Greg Valentine, Bob Orton, Tom Brady, and a slew of other wrestlers. Essentially, I don't know, it was Impact before it was Impact. They were plucking from the other places. Colonel De Beers was there. There was a who's who of who's not in WWF at the time wrestling for the AWF. And I think in its dying days, it was still trying to hold on to something. Some of it was based in Chicago because they did do TV tapings in Chicago. So in this story, it was the Hammock Civic Center. So I could imagine wanting to go to that show and thinking it was going to be a big deal and really taking a step back and seeing that nobody's there, something that I'm very self-conscious at all times whenever I'm wrestling at a show, especially if I invite my friends, like my real life friends, to a show. I will only do it if I know it's a good show. A lot of my friends used to come to Ring of Honor back in the day, but I was scared to have them come to anything else because I I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want there to be 100 people in a giant arena and just be like, ooh, this is what they think I'm doing for a living. The caller said one of their favorite things was to peek through the arena curtains and see the ring. And that's something that brought me back to some memories for sure. Seeing wrestling at the Rosemont Horizon. On the outside, what looks like this giant arena, now called the Allstate Arena. Walking up some steps, trying to find where your tickets are going to be, and then opening that curtain, it being musty because these were all house shows at the time, and seeing that ring. And the arena doesn't look as big as you think it would be. On TV, for some reason, it just looks like there's 1 million people. But when you're there, almost every seat is a good seat. And to know, like, you know, my dad's not buying front row seats, but he'll try to get good enough seats. And those seats will give me access to, like, see the face of a Hulk Hogan or a Roddy Piper or whoever I was seeing at the time. So that does definitely bring back a good memory. I don't know if I was brave enough to yell at the wrestlers like this person did. And I would love to know the story if Greg Valentine really wanted to take out this kid, like what his plan was. Was it to hurt him? Was it to just give him a shock? Was it just to make Joey Baglia laugh? I guess we'll never know. I'm sure if I asked Greg Valentine, who has been on The Art of Wrestling before, about this, he will never remember that. But the fun part is that the caller will remember that for the rest of his life. And that's the great thing about going to, watching, and participating in live professional wrestling. Hey, thanks for watching. That call was part of a whole podcast called Wrestling Anonymous. Listen to the whole thing weekly. Wherever you listen to your podcast, go subscribe. While you're at it, subscribe right here on YouTube to Colt Cabana's channel. Thank you.